everybody, my name is Danielle Nicole and welcome to Monetary Makeup. Today is back to school tips, but mom edition. So if you're a busy mom just like me, then this video is definitely for you. And while we go over this quick, affordable, easy makeup look, the topic of the day is going to be 5 different tips that I picked up as a busy mom myself and how I can help you get through the busy school season. So if you're excited to get started, don't forget to hit the like button, and let's get started right now. So let's start off with the skin, and as much as I would say, yes, I apply a moisturizer, a toner, a primer every morning, when the busy school season starts, that is just not the reality of my day. If anyone else can relate, definitely let me know. So I have 2 products here that you can choose from, and they both can be used as a moisturizer and a primer. So it just comes down to whatever your preference is. So the first is the e.l.f. Plus Glow Radiant Moisturizer from e.l.f. It can definitely be used as both a primer and a moisturizer. So this one has a much more glowy base. It's not exceptionally hydrating, but you'll notice when you apply it to your skin, you have that glowy sheen. So if that's what you're looking for, then this is the one I would recommend. On the other hand, if you are blessed with adult acne like me, sadly, I would recommend the e.l.f. Putty Primer, however, the acne fighting Putty Primer, because this is super moisturizing, but it also has salicylic acid in it. So if you also suffer from adult blemishes, breakouts, and acne like I do, this is a great product to use also as a duo. So I know I've used this e.l.f. Plus Glow Radiant Moisturizer in a ton of videos lately, so I'm actually going to go in myself with the e.l.f. Acne Fighting Putty Primer. In case you haven't tried this primer yet, it's almost identical to the original, however it has a green tint. And I actually did a 2-month wear test where I've been using this 2 times a day, and it is actually helping to keep my skin clear, so that's always super exciting. If I have to get ready for the day and use makeup, why not throw in a product that can help fight acne throughout the day? So I'm going to use my e.l.f. Putty Primer Applicator. It's a dual-ended brush with both a scooper on this side and a brush on the other end. And I'm just going to scoop out about half of a dime size and apply that all over to my skin. Now some of you might be wondering, because this primer is green, does it stay that way? No, it definitely does sheer out, in my opinion. I don't see any sort of a color or anything like that once it's blended in. So I just very quickly swipe it over my face, and then once I'm done kind of rubbing it all over, I just give my skin a quick pat to make sure all of the pores have as much as the primer in as possible. Okay, so primer is on. Next, let's go in with foundation. So what I use when I'm in a hurry for foundation and I need it to last all day with no fuss is the Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator. It's also called Bare Focus, I believe. This is a holy grail tinted moisturizer, and don't be deceived by the name. It does have up to a medium coverage, so it does provide the coverage I need, but it also has a nice glowy base, but it's not necessarily dewy. So I would say it's more of a natural finish foundation or tinted hydrator, and it's absolutely beautiful. So when I'm really in a hurry, I'll just squirt this on my hands and rub it in. But for today, I'm going to use my damp Shot Masse sponge and start to apply this all over my face. So I'm going to squirt out just about that much and start blending away. Real quick, what's great about this Wet n Wild Bare Focus Tinted Hydrator is I find that it has enough coverage that I do not have to go in with concealer. So I also take this up onto my eyes, or my eyelids, and underneath my eyes as well. And that just saves me even more time not having to worry about concealer in the morning. You guys, I have yet to find a tinted moisturizer that has this much coverage but does not look cakey, and it's definitely not sheer like most tinted moisturizers are. So this is, once again, a holy grail tinted moisturizer of mine, and I couldn't imagine my morning routine without it. Okay, so now that the e.l.f. Acne Fighting Putty Primer and the Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator is all good to go, next let's go in with eye primer. And no, this is one step I do not skip in my makeup routine if I'm going to be wearing eyeshadow. So I'm going to take my ring finger and go in with the e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer in the shade Rose. And I don't have time in the morning to use a brush, So I just take a little bit on my ring finger, and this is a very thick, dense formula, sort of dry. So I find that just dabbing it on my lids a couple of times does a fantastic job at keeping my eye makeup on all day. So now that the eye primer is on, typically what I would do next is do my brows. However, I did those off camera just to save time. If I have enough time, I'll go in with the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Pen in the shade Ash Brown, and also use the NYX Brow Glue. Both are under $15. However, if I'm really in a hurry, all I will apply is this NYX Brow Glue, and it works amazing like soap brows. However, because it has a spoolie already in the glue, all you have to do is apply a couple of strokes and you're out the door. Okay, so now eye primer and brows are finished. I'm going to be using a ton of e.l.f. products today. They are super affordable, but the quality of their makeup really stands up to a lot of my high-end products. So next we're going to go in with the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers on the eyes. Yes, that's right, I said eyes. Again, when I'm in a hurry, I find that these putty bronzers on both the eyes and the cheeks and the rest of the face for bronzer do a beautiful job. And now I am only reaching for 1 or 2 shades as opposed to, 2 to 4 different colors. So you can totally go in with just 1 shade depending on your skin tone. And the shade I'm going to start off with is called Honey Drip. I believe it's the 3rd lightest shade. However, it does have enough pigment that it shows up on my eyes and it lasts all day. So I'm just going to take a little bit on my ring finger and kind of dab that all over the crease and my eyelid. Can you guys see how beautiful that Honey Drip shade is on my left eye? It provides just enough definition, but it's not overkill for a busy workday. You know, one thing I just have to say about these putty bronzers is not only are they only $6, but they rival a lot of my high-end bronzers. And these do start off as a cream, but they dry down to a powder finish. So I feel like a lot of different skin types and textures could get away with this product on their eyes and also on their face, which is awesome. So next I'm going to go in with the same shade Honey Drip and just put a little bit on my lower lash line. So the next shade I'm going to go in with the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers is the shade Caribbean Cutie, which is actually the deepest shade, and it's almost like a reddish brown undertone. And I'm just going to create a little bit of definition around my crease. And yep, I'm just going to go in with my finger and get it done. So I'm just focusing this on that outer V. And what's great about these bronzers is I find that the darker the shades get, the more pigment they have. However, if you go in with an extremely light hand on the deeper shades, they really do provide a beautiful finish. Just to give you guys a quick close-up, can you see the difference with Caribbean Cutie and Honey Drip on this side with just Honey Drip on this side? I think it is just the perfect combination for a neutral undertone eye. So just like I did with the bottom lash line with Honey Drip, I'm going to go back in with my AOA brush and apply just a tiny bit of Caribbean Cutie on the bottom lash line. I just wanted to mention something really quick. So I took the putty bronzers down just a tiny bit too far, and because I typically don't wear concealer when I'm in a hurry, I always keep just a little dab of the Tinted Moisturizer or whatever foundation I'm going to be wearing that day on my hand. That way I can take my sponge and dip in and just kind of carve that out real quick. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so that is all I do for eyeshadow are the 2 shades of the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers. And next I'm going to apply my Essence Lash Princess Mascara. You know what's great about all these products is that if you have girls or children who are into makeup, a lot of these products you can use on both yourself and your kids. And just like this Essence Lash Princess, this is $5, and the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers are $6. So super affordable, lasts all day, and is just beautiful makeup in general. Alright, so now that the eyes are done, let's go back in with the e.l.f. Putty Bronzers. Again, if we can use products for both our eyes and face, it just saves you more time. So I'm going to use the shade Feelin' Shady, which is this light gray cool contour shade, and the shade Honey Drip as a bronzer. And I'm going to use the same sponge. I don't have time in the morning to be grabbing 25 different brushes and sponges, so I'm just going to dab a little bit of Feelin' Shady on the butt end of the Shop Miss A damp sponge. and just apply a little bit along my nose. This is literally the perfect contour shade that I've been looking for, because typically most contour shades are either way too orange or they're more gray, but they're not necessarily light enough. And this shade from Feelin' Shady is just the perfect contour, and it just takes a couple of swipes and you're done. Okay, so next what I do to save time is I actually double dip. So let me explain. I take my Shot Miss A damp sponge and I dip into Feelin' Shady, and then I also dip into Honey Drip. Just kind of go back and forth for a second, because once again, who has time to do contour in the morning? And I find that those two shades mixed together just create the perfect kind of sculpted bronzer look. So that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on my forehead, is just double dip into these two shades. This is, I was just thinking what I probably look like in the morning when I'm in a hurry and my husband walks in and I'm vigorously bouncing my skin. He's probably thinking, what in the world are you doing? But oh my gosh, busy moms, are you with me? You just got to get it on your face and get out the door, right? So if you are one that does like to kind of sculpt out your jawline and you're fair and cool tone like me, you could totally take your sponge with this Feelin' Shady and literally just go like this, apply a couple of strokes, and that does the job. Can anyone guess what we're going to be using for blush? e.l.f. Putty blushes. I'm telling you, I just love these formulas. They are so quick and look beautiful and last all day. So the shade I'm going to go in with is called Bora Bora, and it appears like this very bright bubblegum pink, but that's kind of my natural shade when I naturally flush. And for the blush, I am going to use a separate dry sponge because I don't want to mix the contour with the blush shade. I think that that'll just kind of make it look a little bit too ashy on my skin. So I'm going to dip in just a little bit and apply a couple dabs here, couple dabs here, and that's it. Also, if you're feeling a little spicy, you can take just a little bit down your nose, and it kind of gives that natural sunburnt look. And because this shade is a little bit more fair, I don't feel like you can really overdo it. So if you like that cute button nose look, use the same shade Bora Bora on your nose. So this might be just because I actually used to be in a rock band. For those who don't know, in my earlier years, I played lead guitar, and I feel like I'm just stuck in the 80s, so I always take my blush up a little bit. You have to tell me when we're done. Does it look bad, you guys? I just gotta know. I just can't help myself because I love blush so much. So I don't know. I feel like I could seriously bathe in blush and, I don't know, highlighter and bronzer too. I just love it all. Okay, so we'll get into my tips in just a second here. I just want to finish up the highlighter. So I actually have a couple different options for you guys. So I forgot to mention, the e.l.f. Putty blushes and bronzers are beautiful. However, they actually just came out with this e.l.f. Electric Mood Palette, and it has a highlighter, 2 blushes, and a bronzer. And I do really like this palette. However, I do find that the bronzer is just a little bit too matte for my liking. But again, if you're really in a hurry and you don't have time to open a few different cabs, this is a great option. And I did just review this palette. And in fact, one of the other Electric Mood products is a dupe for Danessa Myricks. So that was an awesome find. Okay, so now that all of my base products are on except for highlighter, I like to bring a little bit of dew back to my skin, but I don't like super dewy products when I have to be working for, 10 to 12 hours in the day, and I really need my makeup to last. So that's where I will reach for this e.l.f. Jelly Pop Glow Stick, which was also in the Electric Mood video. And this just gives such a beautiful sheen. I don't know if you guys can see it right there. It's just beautiful, and it doesn't make my skin oily, because I always say I have oily, dehydrated skin, so I kind of have to find this nice balance of formula goes, and I'm telling you, e.l.f. just nails it. So 2 ways you can do this. You can either take your finger and simply dab this on right here, or you can take a dry sponge. I find dry sponges work best with this product, and just dip it in a little bit and dab it in just as if it was your finger. And this is a beautiful highlighter. And I'll show you guys in natural daylight in just a minute here so you can see what it looks like. Now I do take my highlighter all the way up on my temples as well, because I want to bring a little bit of that glow back, since all of the products we use today kind of set down to more of a natural / powder finish. So as much as I love this e.l.f. Jelly Pop Glow Stick, I don't find that it really shows up on my brow bone and inner corner highlight. So if I have time, I go in with the Physicians Formula Butter Highlighter in the shade Pearl, and it just looks like this in the pan, almost like a white highlighter, but when you actually swatch it out, it has kind of a pearlescent sheen. So it's not stark white, but it does have a little bit more of that white base. So that's why I don't like to apply it here on my 30-plus-year-old skin. I just don't like to emphasize texture with a powder highlighter. But as far as the inner corner goes of my eyes and the brow bone, this is a beautiful highlighter, and it lasts all day too. So I'm going to take this compact brush, I guess you could call it, and really kind of dig in here. I find that with these butter bronzers, butter highlighters, you kind of have to pack in a little bit. So I'm just going to apply that to my inner corner, and then you guys will see the difference of what it looks like. So do you guys want to hear something funny? So you know how I talk about these NYX Lift and Snatch brow pens? I mean, I use them in practically every video. And I have two shades. I have the shade Taupe and Ash Brown. And I actually had swatched both of these shades on my hand because I noticed that the shade I typically use, which is Taupe, there's just something off about it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I don't know if you can see, but I washed my hands and there's a little residue of the Taupe shade. But can you guys see right there how green it is? Oh my gosh. So the reason that the Taupe shade doesn't look good is because it oxidizes on my skin. So I just used the shade Ash Brown. So I'm really curious to see if it will do that. It's not anything super noticeable. I mean, I wear it every single day, so maybe I was walking around with Shrek brows. I don't know, but we'll have to see what happens with this Ash Brown shade, because I love these brow pens. They're super quick and easy to just throw in a couple of quick hair strokes and be done and apply the glue. Okay, so anyways, that finishes up everything except for the lips. So I actually have two different shades from Wet n Wild that I suggest for easy wear. Now, I use the matte formulas, and these don't last all day. But hear me out. You might be wondering, why do I suggest them if they don't last all day? Well, because when it comes to matte lipsticks, I find they just dry my lips out so much, and halfway throughout the day, they just look really crusty, and I don't like that. However, these Wet n Wild matte lipsticks, they go on super creamy, and I do find they last about a good 4 or 5 hours, and they do fade very gracefully. So when it comes to needing a lipstick that lasts semi all day, but you don't end up with cracks throughout the day, then these matte lipsticks are beautiful. So I'll show you my two favorite colors. I have the shade Wine Room, which is a little bit more of a deeper red, and then the shade Skinny Dipping, which is my perfect nude color. I wish you guys were here right now to tell me what shade to wear. So this is Skinny Dipping, and that is Wine Room. They're both beautiful. You know, I wore Skinny Dipping in the last video, so let's do a red lip today and see how that looks with the rest of the makeup. Yeah, this formula from Wet n Wild, they are so creamy, but they're matte, so they just have that perfect combination. Okay, so this is what Wine Room looks like on my skin tone. So it's a little bit deeper of a red, like I said, but it's not too deep, and it fades gracefully throughout the day. So if I'm in a hurry and I want a little bit more of a red lip versus a nude, this is definitely one I go for. Okay, so next, let's get into powder. Now, for those that follow my channel, you might be thinking, what is Danielle doing? She never wears powder. because she has oily, dehydrated skin, and I do find that when I wear powder, it emphasizes my texture pretty bad. But if there was one affordable powder that does look pretty good on my skin and lasts for a good amount of hours, it's the e.l.f. Halo Glow Powder. What do you know, another e.l.f. product. I just can't help it. e.l.f. and Wet n Wild are just some of my favorite brands. So if I am going to be wearing a mask and I feel like I want to wear powder, I'll use that same sponge that I used and just dip in a little bit with my damp sponge. And really, I just focus this on setting my T-zone because I don't want to take away any of the pigmentation or the highlighter on the rest of my skin. Okay, so all of my makeup is on, and the last thing I always do is go on with this e.l.f. Glowy Dewy Setting Mist. This is not available in stores. I'm not really sure why, but it leaves a beautiful sheen to the skin, again, without being greasy or oily looking. So I'm just going to apply just a couple of squirts since I applied that powder. Got it right in my face. This does have a coconut scent. It's not terribly strong, but it is scented, but I like the scent, so it doesn't bother me. Okay, so before we cut into the topic of the day and the busy mom tips, I just wanted to give you a close-up for what my makeup is looking like after everything is on. All right, I'll see you in a second for the busy mom tips. Okay, fellow busy moms, 5 tips for having a seamless school year. Tip number 1. If your child likes to have what's often called cold lunches or homemade lunches, I highly recommend making those lunches the night before. Now, my daughter actually likes to have some hot and cold items in her homemade lunch, but I find that if I put all the cold items in her lunchbox the night before, it saves so much time the next day because I only have to add in the non-cold items. So as far as saving time, that is one tip I definitely recommend. Tip number 2 is I highly recommend reaching out to your school's teachers before the school year actually starts and find out exactly how much any of their extracurricular activities are going to cost. I've been there myself where you show up for some of their sporting events and they expect you just to hand over a $600 or $800 check like that. So it just helps to know in advance and have an idea for what these expenses are going to cost. So that way it's not so much as a shock when you finally get there and need to hand over the check. Tip number 3. Do you have children that struggle to want to do homework? Oh, who am I kidding? I mean, I don't think I wanted to do homework when I was in school either. But I actually set up a routine with my own daughter where I set a timer for the amount of time that she does homework and the amount of time that she does reading or any sort of school activities in that nature, then that's the amount of time that night she gets to do activities that are considered fun or be on electronics. So that way she has an incentive to get those school activities or homework done first, and then she has an equal amount of time to have fun. Tip number 4. So if you're a busy mom and you have a significant other, a spouse, or another family member that typically helps out with the household, I highly recommend setting up a joint calendar. This way you can both keep track of what the other person is doing, so that way you can take any second guessing out for what needs to be done that day, that week, and then you can plan even months in advance. Again, we have so much mental load as busy moms to remember. It's just one less thing to have to worry about doing. Tip number 5. So my 5th and final tip for you is to invest in a cork board or a dry erase board that the entire family can use to write down things that they may forget if they didn't write them down. So if you're a busy mom just like myself, I hope those 5 tips do come in handy and might be something you may consider. Or if you have any other tips for the rest of us that I didn't have time to share in this video, definitely leave those in the comments down below. And don't forget to comment monetary makeup, that way we can easily find those comments in the comment section. So those are my 5 tips for busy moms. Next, let's cut into the wear test. Alright everybody, so my makeup has been on now for about 9 hours. And just to give you a close-up, the Wet n Wild lipstick did fade a little bit, but I told you, even though it fades, it doesn't fade super noticeably, and there's none of that cracking. And you can definitely still see the e.l.f. Putty Blush, the bronzer, my eye makeup, and highlighter you can definitely see. So I just couldn't imagine my morning routine without these makeup items. And you can even use less items than I use today if you're in a hurry. If you guys did find value in this video, if you could please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who you might think will find it valuable, that would be fantastic and greatly appreciated. I look forward to seeing you guys on my next video. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful night. Bye guys!